Morning, everyone. So this is Samuel Pepys's diary from the Great Fire of London. We are on the 7th of September, 1666. So we'll just begin. Up by 5 o'clock, and blessed be God. Find all well, and by water to Paul's wharf. Walked thence, and saw all the town burned, and a miserable sight of Paul's church, with all the roofs fallen, and the body of the choir fallen into St. Faith's. Paul's school also. Ludgate and Fleet Street, my father's house and the church, and a good part of the temple the like. So to Creed's lodging, near the New Exchange, and there find him laid down upon a bed, the house all unfurnished, there being fears of the fires coming to them. They borrowed a shirt of him and washed. To Sir W. Coventry at St. James's, who lay without curtains, having removed all his goods, as the king at Whitehall and everybody had done and was doing. He hopes we shall have no public distractions upon this fire, which is what everybody fears, because of the talk of the French having a hand in it. And it is a proper time for discontents. But all men's minds are full to care to protect themselves and save their goods. The militia is in arms everywhere. Our fleets, he tells me, have been in sight of one another, and most unhappily by foul weather were parted, to our great loss, as in reason they do conclude, the Dutch being come out only to make a show and please their people, but in very bad condition as to stores, victuals, and men. They are at Bullen, and our fleet come to St. Helens. We have got nothing, but have lost our ship, but he knows not what. Thence to the Swan, and there drank, and so home, and find all well. My Lord Brunker at Sir W. Batten's, and tells us the General is sent up for, to come to advise with the king about business at this juncture. That just means at this time, and to keep all quiet, which is great honour to him, but I'm sure is but a piece of dissimulation. That just means dissimulation is to give him an idea of what's going on, tell him the news. So home, and did give orders for my house to be made clean, and then down to Woolwich, and there find all well. Dined, and Mrs. Markham come to see my wife. So I up again, and calling at Deptford for some things of Mr. Hewer's, he being with me, and then home and spent the evening with Sir R. Ford, Mr. Knightley, and Sir W. Penn at Sir W. Batten's. This day our merchants first met at Gresham College, which, by proclamation, is to be their exchange. Strange to hear what is bid for houses all up and down here. A friend of Sir W. Ryder's, having L150 for what he used to let for L40 per annum. So they're discussing how much their houses are now worth. So they've basically lost £90, which would have been a lot of money in the 1600s. Much dispute where the custom house shall be, thereby the growth of the city again to be foreseen. My Lord Treasurer, they say, and others would have it at the other end of the town. Again, when in history, depending on where you were and how successful you were and who you traded with, Samuel Pepys was a tradesman for the king and people of nobility, so that's why he is friends with sirs and ladies and people of nobility. You traded in different areas of the city. So when he's talking about the custom house, that's where you did your trade, but it's also where you went to pay your taxes and things like that. So when he's talking about custom houses, and further up when he mentions, let me see if I can find it, the New Exchange, that's actually where they would go and do, they would exchange their money or they would exchange goods. They couldn't just do it in certain places. You had to, it depended on what you traded and who you traded with. So what they're saying, what that must mean is that their original trade exchange house and custom house had burnt down, and they needed to find somewhere else where they could do it, where it would be licensed to do it. They couldn't do it where they'd originally done it before because it wouldn't have been allowed. My Lord Treasurer, they say, and others would have it at the other end of the town. I home late to Sir W. Penn's, who did give me a bed, but without curtains or hangings, all being down. So here I went the first time into a naked bed. That just means it's not got any sheets on it. only my drawers on, that's his clothes, and did sleep pretty well, but still hath sleeping and waking had a fear of fire in my heart, that I took little rest. People do all the world over cry out of the simplicity of the Lord Mayor in general, and more particularly in this business of the fire, laying it all upon him. A proclamation is come out for the markets to be kept at Leadenhall and Milden Green, and several other places about the town, and Tower Hill, and all the churches to be set open to receive poor people. So again, like I just said, markets at Leadenhall and Milden Green, they would be set aside for certain people, types of people. So wealthy people would go to certain markets, and the poorer people would go to different markets. They wouldn't have gone to the same markets. This is the proclamation. On September the 5th, proclamation was made ordering that for the supply of the distressed people left destitute, that means with no money and poor, by the late dreadful and dismal fire, great proportions of bread be brought daily, not only to the former markets, but to those lately ordained. That means that they've been allowed to be a market. That all churches, chapels, schools, and public buildings are to be open to receive the goods of those who know not how to dispose of them. On September the 6th, proclamation ordered that as the markets are burned down, markets be held in Bishopsgate Street, Tower Hill, Smithfield, and Leadenhall Street. And that was referenced in the Calendar of State Papers 1666 to 67. September the 8th. Up and with Sir W. Batten and Sir W. Penn, by water to Whitehall, and they to St. James's. I stopped with Sir G. Carteret to desire him to go with us and to inquire after money. But the first he cannot do, and the other as little, or says, when we can get any, or what shall we do for it? He, it seems, is employed in the correspondence between the city and the king every day, in settling of things. I find him full of trouble to think how things will go. I left him and to St. James's, where we met first at Sir W. Coventry's chamber, and there did what business we can without any books. Our things, I find, our discourse, as everything else, was confused. The fleet is at Portsmouth. They're staying a wind to carry them to Downs or towards Bullen, where they say the Dutch fleet is gone. So the fleet, they mean, is the navy, and stays. We concluded upon private meetings for a while, not having any money to satisfy any people that may come to us. I bought 2 eels upon the Thames, cost me 6 shillings. Thence with Sir W. Batten to the cockpit, whither the Duke of Albemarle is come. It seems the king holds him so necessary at this time that he hath sent for him, and will keep him here. Indeed, his interest in the city, being acquainted, and his care in keeping things quiet, is reckoned that wherein he will be very serviceable. We to him, he is courted in appearance by everybody. He is very kind to us. I perceive he lays by all business of the fleet at present, and minds the city, and is now hastening to Gresham College to discourse with the aldermen. Aldermen were important people of the city. They looked to business people to talk about what was going on with the businesses and the tradespeople, and they mainly were the link between the business people and the councilmen and the court, so the kings and the earls and people like that. Where was I? People speaking their thoughts variously about the beginning of the fire and the rebuilding of the city. Then to Sir W. Batten's, and took my brother with me, and there dined with a great company of neighbours, and much good discourse among others of the low spirits of some rich men in the city, in sparing any encouragement to the poor people that wrought for the saving their houses. Among others, Alderman Starling, a very rich man, without children, the fire at next door to him in our lane, after our men had saved his house, did give 2 shillings and 6pence among 30 of them, and did quarrel with some that would remove the rubbish out of the way of the fire, saying that they had come to steal. Sir W. Coventry told me of another this morning in Holborn, which he showed the king, that when it was offered to stop the fire near his house for such reward, there came but 2 shillings and 6pence. A man among the neighbours, he would give but 8pence. Thence to Bednall Green by coach, my brother with me, and saw all well there, and fetched away my journal book to enter for 5 days past. And then back to the office, where I find Bagnall's wife and her husband come home. So there he's telling us that actually he wasn't writing this day by day. He wrote it 5 days past. So on this account, he didn't have his journal with him. This is the 8th, and he wrote for the 5 previous days. So from the 3rd. So he wrote what's called retrospectively. He wrote for the previous 5 days. So he had to try and remember everything that had gone on for the 5 previous days. Where was that? I've lost my page now. Fetched my journal book to enter for 5 days past, and then back to the office where I find Bagnall's wife and her husband come down. Agreed to come to their house tomorrow. I'm sending him away to his ship today. To the office and late writing letters, and then to Sir W. Penn's, my brother lying with me. And Sir W. Penn gone down to rest himself at Woolwich, but I was much frighted and kept awake in my bed by some noise I heard a great while below stairs, and the boys not coming up to me when I knocked. It was by their discovery of people stealing of some neighbours' wine that lay in vessels in the streets. So to sleep, and all well all night. The 9th of September, which is the Sunday again. So this is a full week. Up and was trimmed. That means he's properly dressed. It's Sunday. They always got properly dressed for church. And sent my brother to Woolwich to my wife to dine with her. I to church, where our parson made a melancholy but good sermon, and many and most in the church cried, especially the women. The church mighty full, but few of fashion, and most strangers. So that means they weren't fashionably dressed. They hadn't got properly dressed for church. I walked to Bednall Green. That, when I say properly dressed for church, that's where the saying putting on your Sunday best comes from. So you always saved your best clothes for Sunday. I walked to Bednall Green, and there dined well, but a bad venison pasty at Sir W. Ryder's. Good people they are, and good discourse, and his daughter Middleton, a fine woman, discreet. Thence home and to church again, and there preached Dean Harding, but methinks a bad, poor sermon, though proper for the time, nor eloquent in saying, at this time, that the city is reduced from a large folio to a decimo tertio. Now, I don't know what that is, but I would think, well, a large folio is a big book. So a decimo tertio, I can only assume, is a very, very small one. So to my office there to write down my journal and take leave of my brother, whom I sent back this afternoon, though rainy. So we now know that the weather's changed, which was good, because it would help to dampen the fire, or the embers of the fire, which I had not done for a good while before. But I had no room or convenience for him here till my house is fitted. But I was very kind to him, and do take very well of him his journey. I gave him 40 shillings from his pocket, and so he being gone, and it presently raining, I was troubled for him, though it is good for the fire. Anon to Sir W. Penn's to bed, and made my boy Tom read me sleep. And I'm going to leave it at that. So we're now on the 9th, so that's the end of the 9th. So we'll pick it up on the 10th of September. Have a lovely day. It is lovely and sunny out there. Cold. I've been in the garden with the dogs. Have a lovely weekend. I will see you later. Bye-bye.